Big love and blessings to all of you beautiful people today. Welcome back to another episode of Juice is the New Tea. I am your host, Eleni Simos, also known as the Clean Eating Chick. And today we are diving deep into the mystical. And I am super excited to have this conversation with my guest today. Her name, Dani Ondrek. Woo!
Dani Fonseca Ondrek.
Oh, Dani Fonseca Ondrek. Right, yes. Okay. I like it.
We have the business name and then we have the married name.
I love that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
I'm really excited to have this conversation. I caused quite a stir a couple months ago when I had publicly shared that I referred to it as a shaman, to you as a shaman. Mm-hmm. We'll get into a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. But I had caused quite the stir when I shared that on like a personal and professional business strategy, I decided it was time for me to seek the external help.
I didn't even know this. I didn't know that you caused quite a stir.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, on social. And people were like, wait, what? So then naturally when I started Juice is the New Tea, I'm like, we need to have Dani come on and talk about all of the work that you do, the work that you and I have done together that we're still like touching just a little bit of the surface. Mm-hmm. And I want to share a little bit more about the backstory on why I decided to work with you in the first place. Mm-hmm. First off, I'm super honored to work with you, to learn from you, and to be guided by you.
Thank you for trusting me.
Absolutely. Yeah. A couple of months ago, actually now at this point, maybe like 6 or 7 months ago, was noticing for me personally on a personal and professional level, I was feeling stuck. Like I had done all of this inner work. The shadow was coming up, all these things. I was making peace of life's cause and effect, but there was still like ruminating debris around my energy that I knew. Yeah, like a funk that was just kind of like clouding my judgment or preventing me from being able to move forward. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I'm already like 10 plus years in my own spiritual healing in my journey that I had the tools that I needed. I would meditate, I would journal, I would go to yoga, but I knew I needed something deeper to get to the root of what was kind of holding me back, knowing that I had so much more I wanted to create in this life, but that there was certain like karmic contracts, and we'll get into that a little bit, and just things that were preventing me, cords to a degree, that were preventing me from really moving forward. And then one of my best friends, Kyle, who all of our listeners will be meeting soon, he had told me that he had hired you and started working with you. And on a personal level, knowing Kyle and seeing where he was at before he started working with you, and then how much his whole world had opened up. From an outside perspective looking in, hearing about the reflection he was doing, the assignments you were giving him, all of these meditations, it was like right up my alley. And I'm like, all right, I need to see like what is going on here.
And I know it took a while because I'm in the chair and he's like, damn it, is it Eleni called you yet? And I'm just like, nope, not yet.
Yeah. Like I mean, I'm a Libra, okay?
You come at your own time. Yes. I get that. And
I had made the decision for sure. No, for sure. I had made the decision, but I knew I needed some time to really get clear on my intention of coming to you in the first place. Because I didn't want to just come and be like a laundry list of all of the shit. I wanted to come with like, these are the things that I need to focus on and work through. How can you help me? What do you suggest? And the biggest thing for me was that part of what I do, if not a huge sum of what I do, is I'm working with other people who are going through similar things. So it was really hard for me to feel like I was able to hold space to be a safe container for others while knowing that I had this heaviness to me that I was trying to deal with on a day-to-day. Yeah. And then, but like our first session, like I don't even think I was with you for more than 5 minutes. And you just looked at me and you were like, Eleni, it is totally okay for you to hold space for others while still being in process with yourself.
And actually it's better in my personal opinion. It's, I think that people have this misconception that you need to go to a healer or find healing space from a guru or someone who's already figured it out. And that is such BS. That is such BS because we're all infallible. We're all, we're all like, we have flaws. We all are going through our process. And quite honestly, I would never trust somebody who is like, I have it all figured out. And I was like, how do I relate to that?
Totally.
Yeah.
I feel that. Well, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I want to get into more about, so I had sent you the show notes before and was just like, hey, this is a brief outline of like the conversation that I want to have with you. And I refer to you as a shaman, and I had been referring to you as a shaman, and you actually told me that you refer to yourself as, I don't want to butcher the word. How do you pronounce it?
Curandera.
Curandera. Ooh, did I do that? I said that right. Okay, good. Can you explain a little bit more about what that is versus a shaman, or is it in the same kind of realm?
It's in the same realm.
Okay.
So let's talk about the word shaman, because it definitely triggers different things for different people. And I did a deep dive into that word with my IU, which are the people that I did my training with. And we talked about, the misconceptions around the word shaman and, why people get such, like they either get very like woo woo about it or they get a little offended because they're like, are we misappropriating that word? And so that's pretty much why I'm like, whatever, words are words. They are important. But I tend to say I work in the modality of shamanic energy healing. That is what my training has been. That has been, what I was downloaded and gifted by the lineage that I learned it from. However, the word shaman is actually a Western word that was created to describe medicine people of different indigenous backgrounds. And so there's two aspects of the word shaman that if you want to know whether you're a shaman or not, there was an anthropologist in the 1950s. His name is eluding me, Maria Eleni or something like that. And he basically studied so many different peoples and indigenous tribes, and in every single one there was a shaman, or he coined the word shaman for them because every one of them had different names. And so what it really entailed is like, one, there has to be some version of a person who can access ecstatic dreaming, or working with the divine, or working with spirit, or working with something that is not of the flesh, into whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
And then you combine it with a lineage or a culture that kind of bestows these medicine teachings through tradition. Put those two together, and that's kind of what he coined as a shaman.
Okay.
Now, if you go to like, a Native American ceremony, they'll be like, we're not shamans. And so like, that's why I just kind of like, I'm not saying that I'm Native American, but I'm just saying that I like to stay away from it.
Okay.
And
fair.
in the Laika lineage that I learned from, their medicine people are called curanderos or curanderas. And, I have my own indigenous lineage. I'm 50% Puerto Rican, and I'm also, connected. My great grandmother was Taino, but even their medicine person that, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that I'm that, because I didn't learn from that lineage, and I'm still trying to discover. It's a lot harder to find, indigenous root or teachings spiritually from the Taino, because, they I don't want to say they've been extinct, because we are living and thriving. But I also like to say I'm a teacher of my ancestors when it comes to that. But
I love that. I love like, I maybe steering
I'm
away
a student
from labels.
from my ancestors, not a teacher of my ancestors. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think we all, right, are students of our ancestors, and I feel like that's a great generalization, but also keeping the intention behind the work that you do. So I love that. What led you? I actually don't know this. What led you on this path of the work that you do?
So I've spoken to you about the medicine wheel, right? Medicine wheel is working around the directions of life. Like the year has the 4 seasons. We work with the directions. And as you come around the wheel, on several paths during your life, you have some sort of learning lesson or aha moment. So, and it comes in different modes, like whatever your soul is ready to take on. And so I have been on a journey of some form of healing my entire life. Like I was a part of a non-denominational spiritual community, like in the early 2000s, and then moved into a transformational coaching community. And then I went into a sweat lodge community where I'm a part of a family that does sweat lodges, based off of the Lakota and Abenaki traditions. And I've been there, a part of that community, for almost 15 years.
Wow.
And so in that space, I was learning deeper healing in different ways, and just like, and then I would get connected with different people like Cuban priestesses and shamans, and so I did ayahuasca, I did all the things, and I'm exploring all these different things because my biggest, I guess, thing that I was trying to heal was I couldn't get pregnant. And so, my husband and I started trying, one right after I turned 30. I'm now 46. And about to be 47 in a couple weeks.
Big Taurus energy.
Taurus energy.
Hey.
And so when I wasn't able to get pregnant, I also understood innately, like just intuitively, it's not just about Western medicine fixing me. There's something deeper going on that's being blocked or stuck.
Right.
And so I explored that, and I did see different healers. And what I came to understanding is that I was the kind of person who I wanted to create peace in my family. I wanted to create peace in the world. And even the way that I had like a makeup artist leadership program where I was like supporting artists to start their own business, and we were giving them coaching. I'm a certified coach as well. I'm a relationship coach and a performance coach and a leadership coach. And so I was trying to coach them, but I ended up not realizing that I didn't learn how to protect my energy while I was holding other people's negative space. Parallel, my parents were going through horrific time together, struggling really hard. I ended up being in the middle. I was holding a lot of their crap.
So you always found yourself in this type of like middle man ground where you were almost like a conduit or a vessel for people's like healing experiences.
Yes.
Okay, I love that.
And then in addition, I'm ADHD.
Yeah.
I have these feelings like I'm not doing enough. So I'm doing my best to do it all, and doing it like probably haphazardly and in a messy way, trying to hold everything together.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
And so it was a mix of different things. What ended up becoming clear to me was, first of all, I was not able to bring a child into this world. And this was told to me by a Cuban priestess who voluntarily wanted to do a session with me. She's like, I don't want you to pay me. I've been called to you, and I have these messages for you. I'm like, okay. And she's I love her. I call her my medicine mama. I haven't actually seen her in a while, but she said that her guides told her that I was holding too much for other people, too much darkness.
Wow.
And although my gift as a healer is to be able to work through the dark realms with other people, I had to pause in order to bring this child into the world, because the child was like, I want to come. I ain't coming in all that.
Yeah,
like,
you got to make space.
Because I had 2 miscarriages, so they were trying to come, and then they wouldn't come.
Yeah, interesting.
And so I sought out different types of healing. She did a healing with me. I did ayahuasca. And then I also met someone who had done the training that I did. I didn't do it yet. I didn't, and she talked to me. She, you and I have worked on ancestral healing.
Yeah.
She did a session with me. She didn't tell me it was ancestral healing, but what came through were my ancestors who had passed.
Okay.
And one I didn't even know, and was really trying to poke her head in and say something to me.
Yeah, you've shared this.
And I was just like, I don't understand why she's here. It was my great grandmother. And when I called my mother afterwards to tell her, like, so I did this session and da-da-da-da. And what do you know about Nanny's mom? Because I didn't have a connection with her, so much so that I didn't even know her name. And my mother turned to me and she was like, oh, that bitch. Sorry, Mom. But like, it was like clear to me, oh, there's some healing that is in my own lineage that needs to happen.
Yeah.
So there was like all this culmination of stuff happening, and what led me to become, quote unquote, take the shamanic energy healing training with Alberto Velodo and the Four Winds Society. You could read his books. He's worked with the Laika people for almost 40 years. You know, he had their permission to bring this kind of work into the Western world. I started, it was funny because it was during the pandemic. I was pregnant.
Yeah. Everybody made their life change during the pandemic, huh?
I know. I mean, so I was pregnant, and what basically ended up happening was I got my, what do you call it? The loan that we got, an SBA loan.
Yeah, the SBA. Yeah.
And
Small Business Association.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was like, clearly I needed some of that to help me push through, because for those who don't know, I've been a makeup artist for almost 25 years. So there was no makeup happening. There was no working at home situation.
I feel like we need a close up of like the makeup look that's happening on the face right now, sister.
So what ended up happening was I looked up, so I had this beautiful deck of cards, this oracle deck, and I knew it came from a place where the guy who helped create it had a school. So I called and I said, you know, hey, I'm interested in this training. I want to know what it takes and whatever and blah, blah, blah. And they explained it to me, and they were just like, so do you know how much it costs? And when they told me, I was like, whoa. I was like, okay. And they were just like, well, you know, is that an issue for you? And I'm like, yeah, it's an issue for me, but it doesn't mean, that's not a no. That means I don't know how yet. And then they said, well, you know, we do have a scholarship program. I said, oh. I was like, can you forward that to me?
Yeah.
I did the scholarship thing.
Great.
And I ended up getting 50% off of the
Amazing.
training.
When there's a will, there's a way.
And then I used the SBA loan.
Great.
To pay for the rest. And then I did
Divine.
my training. Yeah. And then I did my training after my kid was born. And that was insane. But,
Sure.
you know.
Integrating a lot, being introduced to motherhood, and then learning a new way of like holding space for other people, working with other people. So that was, yeah, I mean, you shared a lot there. I think one of the things that I'm curious on, like leading into this work, is what would be different? What's different than the work that you do with people versus therapy? Because when I was kind of going through what I was going through on the cusp, a few people were like, you know, there's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist. And while no disrespect to anybody seeking and being in therapy, my experience with therapists in the past was I always felt like I was just sitting and talking on a loop about the negative bullshit that was going on, and there wasn't really any solution. So I felt like I was just sitting on a couch and just perpetuating this story over and over, like staying in that negativity and almost like continuing to create that by living in that story. I knew that there was something more I wanted to do.
Yeah. So what you're describing is a common feeling of a lot of people go through. And trust me, I'm in therapy now with my husband. We love it. We love being able to have that space to talk. However, talking brings up energy. But if you don't know where to place that energy, then it just kind of hangs and lingers.
Totally.
And so, you know, therapists are great. Some of them, like, they give suggestions. Some of them do coaching. You know, like, there's different ways of doing therapy. But what I do is I help facilitate moving the energy.
Yeah.
We all have, some people call it an aura. We call it the luminous energy field. And it's like this bubble of energy that exists, our personal space of energy that separates us, but is also connected to all the energy that is. Right?
Love that.
So in that bubble that we hold that space with, I mean, if you believe in, you know, past lives or future lives or whatever, all the information in, you know, the computer is right in this bubble.
Yeah.
So, and if something has happened to you or to your lineage, or, you know, you experienced a trauma when you were little, you know, that energy sticks with you and it gets reactivated every time you talk about it, every time you come into a situation that reanimates that story. And if the energy can't move from it because you're not opening it up, moving it, and then replacing it with light, then it's kind of like a broken record.
Right. And also, if you were constantly thinking about an experience that happened, then your body is not able to differentiate the experience from happening 9 years ago or now in this moment. So your body is in that constant state of like when that traumatic or upsetting event or experience happened, you're still staying in that energetically, vibrationally, and then that impacts, in my opinion, and I'm sure you agree to, your reality. Your reality mirrors that internal world that you're kind of staying in to a degree.
Yes. It's like, I keep describing it as like, the record. Our trauma is a big honkin' scratch in the record. And so when the record tries to pass over that scratch, it skips and it skips and it skips and it skips. And the only way that you're going to be able to is to remove the record, fix the scratch, if you can even do that, or replace the record, whatever. But the idea is also do the work to not scratch the record again.
Right.
So whereas you and I will do a session together, I'll assist in moving the energy. You're the one who does the healing.
Yeah.
Because you're the one, once that energy is cleared and moving, you've got to change the trajectory of what you're doing in your life in order to keep the sustainability of you not creating the scratch again.
Right. I think part of the work that you do, and I think this is something I've always worked on my own, but becoming first time sharing space with someone, because I'm a lone wolf. Like I'm usually just like, I'll figure it out on my own. I'll deal with it on my own. Me and my journal, me and my yoga class, me and the sauna, whatever it is, right? This is the first experience where I'm working with someone one-on-one that really speaks my language, that really understands and has experience. And I think the biggest thing is the awareness component that comes from whether it's in my conversations with you before we get into the session, or it's the work that you have me do before or after the session. It's that like, oh, I forgot about that, or I made that connection, or whatever it was. We had done an ancestral healing session together, and you had given me a set of 10 questions to answer about my mom. And one of the questions, and I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but it led me to recall this experience of my mom that she had shared with me that she attributed to one of the reasons why she had gotten sick in the first place. You know, she had colon cancer, and there was a lack of forgiveness that she had always expressed to me towards a few people in her life that she felt attributed to her diagnosis of this refusal of colon cancer, of this refusal to like let go. So that question that you had me do before a session bridged that connection to me. I was like, oh shit. Forgiveness, letting go, working through that, remembering that to like allow it to come up, to be moved through, to be then discussed in our session was so powerful. You know, and like I wasn't even thinking that was like a realm or an avenue that I had work to be done. So it was so interesting. What are some of the common reasons why people come and work with you, or what's like the healing guidance that most people are looking for?
I mean, the most common word I hear, and you even said it in this session, is stuck. They feel stuck. Some people feel like they've done the work, but there's something that's not open, that's not moving. Other reasons are they feel intense, like personality disorder, in the sense of like they're either always angry or they're always depressed. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if you're depressed, only go to a shamanic energy healer.
Right.
I believe that you should always, if you're going to do a medical practice, and do it in conjunction with energy practice. I did do IVF. That's not why I got pregnant, interestingly enough, but I did do IVF in conjunction with also doing energy healing. Because I was like, you can do all the physical stuff, but even if I did get pregnant, I would have still been holding on to that funk, and it would not have transferred well to my child. So I thought it was responsible for me, and also sustainable, to also work on, you know, what's underneath all of this. Because I don't know, I'm sure you talk about this being, you know, the person that you are, that any ailment we have in our body is the last resort. It is your body's last resort to be like, if you don't fix this shit soon, it's going to get irreversible.
Totally.
And so your body's screaming, work on this, do something about this, because it wouldn't have, and most of the time people, you know, when they realize it, they do energy healing to be preventative.
Yes.
Because your body, when an energy is being focused on something and getting stuck, it starts to eat at your body if it can't get the space someplace else. And that's where we get heart disease, cancer, all the things.
Yeah.
So it's vitally important to be able to work on both together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was a great point that you made, that working in conjunction, you know, the practices or the Western practices that work for some people, to be able to pair that also with a deeper form of energy healing, I think is really key.
Yes.
What would you say is like the biggest myth or misconception about the work that you do?
So I get really irritated when I see people throwing the word shaman around. That's also another reason why, as much as I feel grounded in my practice and confident in my practice, I still just, I'm not a shaman, but I stay away from it. Is like, people think, you know, there's like this guru aspect of like, I'm an elite person that can give you something, and you know, you can't, you know, there's like this weird spiritual elitism that I'm like,
I understand that.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And I personally think it's always beautiful to own your gifts, own your medicine, because once I learned, I integrated my own medicine, my art, my makeup, you know, my leadership skills, my coaching, and I've created my own practice. But I still remain humble about what I'm learning, what I'm experiencing. Every person who walks into the room is a new person. I don't ever prescribe, oh, I get it. Like, you know, even when you and I had our first conversation on the phone, I said to you, like, this looks like this, but let's start working together and see what shows up.
Yeah.
You've got to be in wonder.
Well,
You've got to be in a place of allowing spirit or whatever, you know, informs you, your, you know, your guides or whatever, to come in and let you know what is going on. I'm just a conduit. I'm just a channel. Like, I definitely have gifts and knowledge, and I know how to balance it, but I'm not this elitist person who knows anything more than you do.
Well, you said it. I mean, like, you're holding the space for me to do the healing. Like, I think that's the biggest misconception too. Like, whenever I have Reiki clients, it's not me that's doing the healing. It's this energy, and I'm acting as the conduit to be able to make that happen. Also creating a safe space, because I think ultimately people need community.
Right.
People need community in spaces where they feel seen, heard. I had come to you about a few specific things, and you're like, okay, well, this is all great. Thank you for sharing, but let's get to the root, because I actually think that we need to start here. I had done, the first session that we did together was a cord cutting, and I've done countless cord cutting meditations on my own towards different people or for parts of myself or past versions of other people. But you gave me like such a simple, like, well, let's try a cord cutting with this situation. And I was like, oh shit, like, I never thought to do, of all of the, you know, 5+ years that I've been practicing cord cutting.
Reflection.
Yeah.
You need your own solitude time, but you need spiritual, you know, partners, friends, you know, people you work with to bounce back a mirror of what I mean, you can do so much work on your own. Of course you can.
Right.
But we're human beings. We're not meant to work in a vacuum. Like, we're here
It takes a village.
Right. And there's reasons why people come in your life at the time that they do. Do you know what I mean? I firmly believe that with anyone who comes to see me, or anybody that I've seen, you know,
even
like, it's
people that we're in relationship with.
Oh yeah, and they might not be your forever, but they're here to show you something.
A reason, a
That's
season, or
for
a
shit
lifetime.
Sure. Oh yeah. I guarantee you, if there's been if you're going through a struggle with somebody, it doesn't mean like, and you still feel like they're your soul mate. They might be a soul partner. They might be here to show you something. It doesn't mean they're here forever. It may mean they're here to show you something and then get the fuck out.
Yeah.
you know?
All mirrors, baby. I love it.
Exactly. The second misconception before we move on,
Yeah.
I'd love to address, because every time I tell somebody I do shamanic energy healing, they're like, oh, so you do ayahuasca?
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to talk to you about that. How much is plant medicine integrated in your work?
So I do not prescribe any plant medicine.
Yeah.
There are people in my IU who are, food energy healers. There are people who work with medicines like ayahuasca, like peyote, like, what's the thing with the frog
Combo.
Thank you. Like, they work with that, and that is their specialty, and that's their gift. It does. If someone tells you they're a shaman, or works in the shamanic, modality, it doesn't mean that they work with plant medicine.
Right.
So, I use oils. I'll prescribe maybe a tea or something, but that's not my gift, is herbs and all that kind of stuff. I have friends. I have my own little, we have a little coven witch circle.
Collective.
Yes,
Yeah, your coven.
It's
okay,
like
I love it.
Yes.
Yes.
And in that circle, we have different people with different gifts. I have one sister, Kendra. She works in Prospect Park, and every time we go on a walk someplace, she will point out to me every blade of grass, every flower blooming, every this, and she'll give me the whole rundown. And so through her, I'm deeper connected with Pachamama and Mother Earth. And then I have a beautiful friend, Talia, who's like, she knows herbs and she knows medicines, and if I want to ask her something, so everybody's got their gifts.
It's like your wisdom council. You have your people that you go to
Yes.
for these things, and they draw and they bring out a different version of yourself.
Right. And
which I love.
Everyone downloads their gifts differently. Like, some people hear things, some people see things. I'm kinesthetic. I can feel what's going on with you. You're not even in the room. I'm famous for calling somebody or texting somebody and be like, how did you know I was going through something right now? I was like, I felt something.
Love that.
I felt
How do you feel it? Where do you feel it?
I just feel it. Like, it's not like my mind gets taken to that person. It's or maybe I do think of them. I think of their face, or I feel like there's a disconnect. But there's been like no conversation between us, but I feel like something's up.
Okay.
And I
understand that.
I just go on an intuition. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that I'm more gifted.
No.
Than someone who, but I also in the medicine training that I did, we learned how to hone into our very specific intuitive gifts. Do you know what I mean? And so I learned very quickly that when I'm doing a session, I pick up feelings when I'm talking to you. Like, if I'm talking about something that's going on in your body, I feel it in my body. In a very small, minute way. And then also, while I'm working on you, I'm an artist. I download, we call it imaging. It's different from imagination. Imagination comes from imaging, but it's like, it's a spiritual something that's coming into me for some reason, and a picture comes into my mind. But I have to be very clear that I am clear of my shit.
Yeah.
Because then it's not me projecting my shit onto somebody. So I'm clear that these images that come in, like, they might be like, they might have absolutely no connection to you in the moment. And then maybe like months down the line, do you remember when you told me that? And I was like, this happened. And I'm just like, oh, good to know. Because I didn't know. I just told you what appeared to me during our session. And that makes sense now. Do you know what I mean? So I don't claim to be like, this is what's going on with you, and I think you need to do da. Like,
no, that's not what the voice in your head is. That's not what it sounds like. No. All right. There's two things there that you said that I want to touch on. I think we should probably backtrack and explain a little bit about what a cord cutting session is and a cord cutting meditation.
Okay.
And then also I want to get into, how do you prep mentally, energetically, spiritually before a session? So first, let's get into what exactly are the deets of a cord cutting meditation and session.
Different people do cord cuttings in different ways. I have heard, I've had other clients say, I've done cord cutting before. I'm like, oh yeah, tell me about it. And the way they describe it's all the same basis, but a cord is really an energetic connection that most of the time is some sort of toxic connection. So it's not like, so if there's a connection between you and me because we love each other, that's not necessarily a cord.
Right.
There might be, for example, if you're working with your mom, and you love your mom and your mom loves you, but there's like some sort of connection that's pulling at each other's energy.
Like a push-pull dynamic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you feel dictated by their reaction, their response, their opinions, their thoughts.
So maybe like a lack of boundaries kind of, situation also.
It could be that.
Yeah.
It could also be like there's just like I can't, I can't let go of this. Like this is not, like it keeps coming up. It's that cycle thing, whatever. And so a cord cutting is an intentional ritual. And a ritual is just a ceremony, that to me, it announces to the universe, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to live on my own destiny, and I'm ready for that person to live on theirs.
Yes.
Doesn't mean we're not going to associate. But it also could mean somebody you're not going to ever talk to again, you haven't talked to in years, but you still have the cord. You still need to cut the cord. It doesn't matter if that person's not in your life. It doesn't matter if that person's dead. It doesn't matter if, that person, you love them. Like I do cord cuttings between mothers and their children because sometimes they're like so dictated by everything their child's going to do. They can't breathe. They can't do their own thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a mother. I know that you'll never not.
But it's also just about protecting your energy, right? And like protecting your, I don't know, your thoughts or there's so much there. So it's not a negative thing. It's more so you could even, like, I've done cord cuttings with people who are still very much in my life, but I'm cutting a cord of a past version of them that I no longer am calling forth to show up in my life. Like I saw that person for what they were. Now I'm calling in a new higher, embodied version of that person to create a different dynamic
here. Or they're going to be who they are no matter what. Right. And it has nothing to do with you anymore. Sister.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing is like we cannot change other people.
Yeah.
We can hold space for them. We can, like you said, create a boundary and always love them. But how they perform and whether they get better or have an aha moment or change or whatever, that is not our fucking business.
Yeah.
That is not our business.
I love that you just like whispered the fuck.
Well, because, I'm a big F-bomb person and I'm trying to hold back.
Thank you for respecting. How often should we cut cords?
I think healing is good when I feel like at some point we're doing a major haul of healing and then it's like upkeep.
Yeah, maintenance. Like an oil change.
There's people who fall off track and then they need to do another rehaul. It all depends on you. But you will know if there's like something that's showing up because sometimes something won't show up because you couldn't deal with it because you're dealing with this. And then once that thing has been healed or you worked on that and you like feel like you're grounded with it, then you're like, I wasn't even noticing this over here because I was so blindsided with this.
Yeah.
So then you can peel back I hate the phrase because it's so overused, but you peel back the onion and you see different things that you're going to work on now that you've come to this level of awareness in your life. So,
I usually like after a really long day, if I've made a lot of connections with people, if I had a lot of clients or it was just like a highly energetic day, I'll sage myself. Like,
well,
when I walk in the door, I shower before I get into my bed. I always want to wash off the day, like energetically, physically. I know some people like will sit on their bed in their clothes of the day. I can't. Little things like that bear energy, our clothes, our hair, all of that.
Right.
So I don't know if you want to share like some practices if maybe somebody's not necessarily ready or comfortable enough to do something like a cord cutting meditation. If that feels extreme, what's like another practice?
You and I are also going to do a ceremony for the bands of power and protection, which is one of the rights that I was given that whomever I give it to can give it to other people once they have it.
Okay.
There's 2 rights in the 13 rights that we received that any individual can pass it on to somebody else. And I love that. And so that particular rite requires you to work with your bands of power and protection every day for 90 days. Once you get into that practice, you kind of have a mental click in your head, like, am I clearing myself off? Am I grounded? Am I reset? Whatever. So that's one thing. Two is, and it's hard for me as someone with ADHD, because sometimes I'm living on the fly and whatever, and I really have to kind of force myself to start my day with an intention of, this is what I want to walk into my day with. This is what my, and sometimes when you walk into your day intentionally, where you ground yourself and you connect with what you're up to on a bigger scale versus a littler scale, then the things come to you in your day and you're like, oh, okay. As opposed to being in reaction, like, and so, and if it does happen, because that's okay, we're humans, it happens, you come home and you have some sort of a ritual, which, could be anything from, like you said, taking a bath and intentionally just woosah, like, let this water take all of this stuff from me and put it down the drain. And what am I replacing it with? Deep breaths, my peace, whatever, it's, for me, it's highly important to not scroll your phone right before you close your eyes. I mean, we're human. People are like, some people tell me, like, I was up in my bed doom scrolling on TikTok, until 3:00 in the morning. I was like, well, that is a way to totally fuck up your circadian rhythm. Like, you are just going to
that also blast. Too, like, all of the images that you're seeing, and you're seeing other people's, like, realities and the things that they're choosing to share. It's like we're inundated with this information of other people's reality that completely takes us outside of our own experience. That I feel like is why we're all feeling burnt out, spread thin, and like we're constantly concerned about what other people are doing. Like,
I just think that it's like, your energy is yours. The whole idea, when you put your head down to the pillow at the end of the day, you need to pull back your energy to you. And if your brain and eyeballs are on what's going on in Palestine or Israel, if your brain is like, what did Trump do today? If your brain is like, like trust me, tomorrow's another day. You can take in with your own boundaries what's going on and be aware tomorrow. Before you hit your head to the pillow and you close your eyes, do something to bring your energy back to yourself. If that's breathing, if it's listening to music, if it's, because even just watching TV sometimes, it's just like, unless it's like a beautiful something that makes you feel good,
that fills you up.
Like right now, I just watched the finale of White Lotus in
No spoilers.
No spoilers, but those two finales, 1923 and White Lotus, I now have to rewatch the whole current episode of Love on the Spectrum to bring back all the love and innocence into my life, because I need to see beautiful, innocent people falling in love and kissing and hugging and giving each other gifts.
Gives you hope.
Yes. Well, it's just, you just want to bring your energy back to yourself in a way that feels good, that,
Absolutely.
I used to study under a woman named Carolyn Miss, and she's a medical intuitive, and she used to do a meditation that helped you literally take what happened in your day and just take it and put it like, take it like in Harry Potter, take it in from your head into the pensieve.
Yes.
And just take those thoughts. Some people also leave a notebook by their bed. And if there's constant thoughts happening to you that you're afraid to forget, or you want to marinate, put it on the pad, close the pad, and put it someplace else. Know that it's somewhere, and you can now rest.
Yeah.
Because you need you. So stop giving you to other people.
I love that. I always, after my yoga classes, and even for myself, and after my sound bath meditations, when I'm leading people out of the meditation and everyone's in fetal position and they're like still coming back into the room and they're integrating the experience, I always end it with, while they're in fetal, to like reflect briefly on the ways that they showed up for themselves and for their loved ones every day that week or that day. And I tell them to visually call all of their power, all of their energy back to them. Because I think that's so important. Like, people don't realize that if you're talking all the time, or you're on your computer, or you're holding space for other people, no matter what it is that you do for a living, you're putting that out there. You need to bring it, you need to draw it back. That way you're going to bed with like a full cup.
Yep.
And I think that that's just, it's a small practice that I know I've been able to just pass on to other people, that I do for myself every night before I go to sleep. And it's helpful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And to answer your other question, like, how do I prepare myself for a session?
Tell us.
I always need my own space for at least 45 minutes. So when you come over and do a session in my house, a lot of people recommend you don't do sessions in your home. And it's interesting because maybe
is so cozy.
I know. Well, I mean,
love it there.
So here's the thing. I have been very, very blessed and fortunate to have clients with very, and I don't want to say there's like good energy, bad energy, but like with safe energy, that I invite them into my home, and I do sessions on Zoom as well. But because I'm bringing other people's energy into my home, whether it's their physical body or bringing, because when I do it on Zoom, I bring their energy body to me so I can work on it. You just have to be very cognizant. First of all, I do kind of like I'm sure every facilitator or person who works with people's energy has their own version of what they do. I end up putting on some like really amazing, it also depends on how I feel that day, but I've put on some like really amazing energetic, like indigenous music with drums, and I dance in the 4 directions. So each direction, I start in the south and I go all the way around to the north, and then I go to Mother Earth and I go to Father Sky, and I dance them in all the things I'm asking them to bring in for this person. I also clear my bands of power and protection, like let them kind of like sink into the earth. And sometimes I do breathing exercises. I light my candles, I sage my space. And then sometimes I'll even, just to really like get connected with the person before they even show up, I'll pull a card for them, and then maybe I'll just allow myself to write some things that are downloading through me, just to get very present. Do you know what I mean? Because
Absolutely.
I'm neurodivergent. And like, if I'm sitting there on my phone waiting for the person to show up, I'm not with them.
Right.
I'm not clear. And I also,
you're not even with yourself.
Right. And I'm also inviting in anything that needs to come in and inform the session, ancestors, luminous beings, guides, whatever spirit, like if they want to come in and inform my session, I have a conversation, like I invite them in, so, and that comes with all of that, so that's my personal way of prepping, but it's also so that I make sure I've cleaned myself off of my shit and I'm ready to just be this conduit for you, because otherwise you can't clearly see what's going on for you, because I can't tell you how. This is one of the other biggest problems I find with people who are healers. They project what they think should be happening. And by the way, you should never project anything that should be happening, because you don't know until that person shows up. If you already have a preconceived idea of what this person's healing needs to look like, that's you. That is not them. And so that is very suspicious to me when I see people doing that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you think that we all have the ability to tap into our own shamanic, or I mean, it's not much different. I think it's like a heightened sense of an intuition, because I believe that everybody is powerful. Yeah. Everybody's spiritual. We're all magicians. We're all sorceresses and goddesses.
So there are people who were born gifted, or they have an experience in their life that opened up a channel that allowed them to be so much more in tune. I know after I became a mother, and the more like in tune with my healing I got very sensitive to things. But there are people who were born with the ability to speak with spirits. There were people who were born with the ability to intuit like a past something that happened in a space. I do believe in that stuff. I don't believe that everybody has those gifts, but everybody has a gift. Now, those who are not who were born possibly with the gift, but they haven't really fully tuned in on it. And most of the time you kind of like remember when you're a kid, like how you were so easily able to open yourself up to these things. And as you got older and went through your stuff and had your experiences,
Life gets hardened.
That door closed and closed and closed. And so basically I think that if you practice the muscle, you are going to open it more and more. And you're going to find what you're good at and what is your specialty.
Beautiful.
So yes.
I love that. I agree. I think that we all have the power, and I think we all have that innate ability to connect to our intuition and to even receive signs from the universe or our guides. I think it's about people's willingness to be open to being receptive to those things. I know for me, like if I'm feeling, stuck, right? Or if I'm feeling unsure about something, I have my practices. I'll usually go by the water. And I need to be by flowing water, the ocean. I have a spot close to my house. And I'll go there. And I feel like I receive information, downloads, just little nudges. It's not necessarily like a clear cut sign of like someone whispering something to me. It's just like an intuitive nudge where it's like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, call Dani and hire her.
I mean, that's why people say meditate, because the quieter you let your mind in, the more space you allow for messages to come through. But people have a really hard time quieting their mind. I do. I don't meditate like normal people.
Right.
I have to do something that connects me, but it's not necessarily sitting on a pillow for 15 minutes.
Well, we all have our different forms of meditation too. I feel very strongly the same way. Like, I think in the stillness is when that surrender, being able to train your body to receive, to relax, and the receptivity of the moment is so powerful. I used to be somebody who would be like going, hustle, would never want to rest. Resting, napping, laying down during the middle of the day would give me such anxiety. Thank God over the last few years, I have been able to soften, and I feel like I've become so much more productive by actually doing a lot less. Because I've allowed for more to come to me by doing that. And I'm excited to continue to work and build with you and see what else continues to open up, because it's been just a few short months. I'm doing a soul retrieval with you in a couple of days, and I can't wait. Yeah, that look on your face. Okay, cool. I'm ready. So we'll have to probably have you back soon to then talk about what the soul retrieval experience is like, because we are like already almost out of time. But I want to do 2 rapid fire questions with you. If your spirit animal could talk, what would it say?
Oh, God.
Or your guides, your spirit guide.
The interesting thing is I work with animals a lot, and it depends on what you're working on. Because an animal will show up in your life, particularly connected to the thing you're working on in that time.
Okay.
I personally have wolf as my spirit animal, because the medicine of wolf is teacher, and the idea is that the wolf goes out on its own individual journey to learn, but then brings it back to the pack to teach them. So that's always with me.
Okay.
And so what would the wolf say to me? Keep doing that. Keep trusting that is your medicine. And no matter what criticism you get, or some naysayer, keep doing it, because you're good at it.
What are some or one the most sacred object that you won't leave your home without or won't travel without?
I don't have one. I don't believe in objects like that.
Okay.
I definitely have, I have my grandmother's ring.
Yeah.
I have
beautiful
certain jewelry that I love to, that I put my own energy into. I don't believe in putting in that much weight into an object.
Okay, I like that.
I think that objects work with us, but I don't give it that much precedence.
Beautiful. Any last little message or blessings you would like to leave for the listeners today?
I would say with everything that's going on today, please, one, find your gift and your medicine and how you can contribute to the vulnerable people that are struggling right now. No matter what side you're on or whatever, just find ways to find empathy and love, And also know that we are all works in progress. You know, my company's name is Living Masterpiece because we, like all art, you know, is a process to create it. Some of it's ugly, some of it's beautiful. I actually think it's all beautiful, whether it's gross or not.
Yes.
But find the way, you know, your journey is long. And so if you're always rushing to get to the end, be in the process and find what is the thing that you can be finding joy or finding, you know, power in this moment. Don't always be trying to rush to the end goal, because that goal changes as you grow. So if you're just on there,
Yeah. Amen,
you know, you're not
sister.
going to see all the beautiful things around you.
That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing everything that you did with me today. Where can the people follow you, keep tabs, work with you? You want to drop your links, your Instagram?
Yes, sure. I'm terrible at TikTok. Sorry, I can't. My
It's okay,
brain
me too.
can't wrap my head around it. But both on Instagram and TikTok, as far as the spiritual stuff goes, I'm at the.shamanic.artist.
Amazing.
And then I am also a makeup artist. So if you want to follow that crazy journey, I'm at The Body of Art on both TikTok and Instagram. I'm also on Facebook that way, but I'm trying to stay off Facebook because that's crazy. I do have a website as far as the spiritual shamanic work. It's livingmasterpiece.space. And then, of course, I have thebodyofart.com, but I don't do anything with that. It's better if you go to Instagram. Yeah, and that's
Beautiful.
it. So
Thank you so much. I
you're
appreciate
welcome, Eleni.
it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, of course. And thank you all so much for listening to another episode of Juices the New Tea. I am your host, Eleni Simos. You can follow me at The Clean Eating Chick or at Juices the New Tea. And we'll see you all next time. Bless.
Great work.
Juices the New Tea is brought to you by Cleanse Juices. For more information on 3-day juice cleanses and 4 flavor packs, visit iamcleanse.com. Use code JUICES the New Tea for 10% off all orders.